Hello, everybody. Welcome here to my session. And as most probably you already know, I'm going to be talking about Microsoft Azure solutions. And hopefully you know that Microsoft is one of the public cloud and private cloud providers. So I will provide some insights on resources that you can use and interact inside the platform. Now, to set the expectations straight, I don't have any demos planned for this session. I won't show you the code snippets, etc. It will be more like introductory session on your possibilities and options, how can you leverage the platform to your needs and to your profits in a sense. So let me introduce myself. I'm Laurynas Dovydaitis. I work as a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. Surprise, surprise. Now, I do have an agenda planned, and this goes in 4 parts actually. So first part being the Microsoft Cloud Platform overview, and I will briefly talk about our strengths of the platform. Why should you want to use it? What are the basic resources or the building blocks that you can use for your own solutions and for your own development. Then I will cover the thing called Azure solutions and explain to you what Microsoft calls Azure solution as a solution and what components do those solutions include and need. And we'll walk you through one scenario, e-commerce solution example. How can you build such solution on Azure, just to set your expectations and hopefully invite you to join the program. And we do have a final session planned for Q&A, if you have any interest or follow-up questions. Now, I would like to remind you that I'm architect, as my role is architect, so I do start by talking from business perspective and trying to transfer those business expectations to technical expectations. So what are today's business priorities? So first of all, most of the businesses, enterprises, and organizations, they do want to focus on their core business. And the second expectation is they do not want to support IT. I mean, they do not want to become a business that only tries to close out fires that are usually happening inside IT organization and IT support. And they do like to increase their profits with the help of IT solutions. So with that in mind, let's start from the beginning and Microsoft Cloud Platform overview. So first of all, we do have a wide coverage throughout the world. Now, who could guess how much data centers are currently on this picture or announced that you can run services? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No options. Okay, so actually this number represented here is 38. The last time I used this slide, it was outdated, it was 36, and this happened like in past 4 months or 6 months. So we are rapidly developing on a huge pace actually. And every time I want to talk about our global presence, I have to go to azure.com website and check for myself whether we increase this number and is the number current. With that in mind, the main benefit for you as a user of cloud platforms or cloud solutions is actually the geo-presence or disaster recovery scenarios or high availability scenarios. So imagine you can run your website or some sort of solution that you're developing from North Europe data center, and at the same time you can have replica of that same website, for example, running in Americas region. In this case, using different components of the platform, you can actually redirect your customer that is trying to access that solution to the nearest data center. This way decreasing latency and increasing performance of your solution. So putting the solution closer to your customer. On the other hand, you might access the regions that typically aren't available for you. And if your business wants to run some solutions that are, for example, that need to run behind the big firewall in China, for example, so we do have presence there. On the other hand, from European Union perspective, we do have a couple of data centers run in Germany, and actually those are operated by German contractors, so comply fully to Germany's data protection laws. Okay, so let's move on and let's discuss the core components of the platform. So the basic building blocks, as I may call it, and the dinosaur era of virtual servers or virtual machines. And here we as a vendor have a quite sufficient offering, actually, starting from stuff like general purpose virtual machines, who are in a sense optimized for smaller compute and RAM ratio, for example, running your user databases or domain controller, stuff like that. We do have offerings that specifically addresses intense memory applications, so meaning that the ratio for operating memory is higher to CPU count, for example. And on the other hand, we do have a counter offer that focuses on compute power rather than memory. But the killer solution and killer offering here is machines that provide you direct access, for example, to GPUs. And this way you can do massive parallel computing just by using, for example, NVIDIA's latest GPUs. And there are actually 15 to 20 offerings or different virtual machine groups that you can use and you can leverage to your own good. And these are actually, you have different grades of RAM, CPUs, compute, etc. Now, you can imagine that those virtual servers or virtual machines have to store data somewhere, for example, operating system data or your own data that you create or access. So we do provide a storage platform for this use. So storage platform from platform perspective can be utilized for storing your virtual machine data, like in type of VHD files, or directly storing stuff like blob files, for example, images and videos, or any static content or dynamic content. On the other hand, you might want to access the data in easy way, and for example, you can leverage protocols like SMB to access this storage as typical file share from Linux or Windows machines. Performance-wise, we do have a standard storage that provides up to 4,000 IOPS per virtual machine, but we do have a premium offer which runs on SSD drives, and this way you can achieve up to 80K IOPS per virtual machine if your solution requires such performance. So this addresses most of today's needs from virtual machine perspective. Now, on the other hand, you need to interconnect all those servers, that storage, and other resources that are available in the platform. So in this case, you would use virtual networks. And virtual networks actually allow you to isolate this in logical boundaries. For example, create a different security boundary for your virtual servers and storage. This way you can deny all access from internet, for example, and connect only through your own private networks. That said, there are options how to interconnect your enterprise directly to Azure, for example, using site-to-site VPN. That in one way can go through internet connection, typical internet connection, or even connect through dedicated offerings like MPLS connections through your telco providers. And this solution is called ExpressRoute. This allows you to have consistent and predictable bandwidth as well as isolation. Now, if you're a single developer just developing a startup app or would like to integrate that from your personal compute, like the notebook running this presentation, you can as well leverage point-to-site VPN connection to any resource that you have here. On the other hand, with the quick pace of development and CI/CD integration, stuff like that, you most probably want to decommission and provision these environments pretty quickly. And sometimes mistakes do happen, and that's why we have an offering that is tightly integrated with virtual machines, and this is called backup, that allows you to create snapshots of your virtual machines or backups that span throughout a month or so, or even up to 99 years, if I'm not mistaken and remember that correctly. So in that case, you have any point in time restore if that's needed. Now, if your goal is actually to take a step even further and provide high availability and fault tolerance from business continuity perspective, we have an option actually to replicate all the data from one Azure data center to another using site recovery tools, for example, or even to replicate your own on-premise data to the data center for disaster recovery scenarios, creating disaster recovery plans, etc. But as I mentioned, these are all days, and this is a DevOps conference, so we need to move forward and talk about today's technologies. And here we actually have a higher abstraction components built into the platform, and things like containers, for example, with full Docker container format support, and you can run those containers inside Azure with all support and performance that you might expect from the cloud platform. On the other hand, we do support that container orchestration by Docker, for example, provided by Docker Swarm, DCOS, or Kubernetes, and this is native to platform support as well. It is worth mentioning that Microsoft is not only Windows company as of last 5 years, and now every third virtual machine running in Azure actually runs Linux, which is fully supported as well. Now, if your game is serverless computing, we do have offering called Functions, which allows you to develop event-triggered or event-based applications that actually run only after event is triggered, which you define. And in that case, you only pay for the time that this function or this application of yours is running, starting from 1 second, and it has actually a limit of 5 hours, I think, but the function itself, it should be smaller than that. Now, from architecture standpoint, and if we would want to talk about microservices architecture, so building application as number of services, we do have a service fabric offering that comes from platform. This runs on Windows, and actually Microsoft internally uses this technology pretty much, those microservices and those new type of applications. So we got that covered as well. Moving on, talking about platform as service offerings, I pointed out a couple of those here. For example, starting from Traffic Manager or Load Balancer, which are two offerings of basically load balancing your workloads, with the Traffic Manager being public-facing solution that allows you to redirect your customers to the nearest data center, and the Load Balancer used for internal load balancing resources within the platform. Now, we do have those typical services like DNS or reverse proxy servers, reverse proxy being app gateway. And we do have stuff like SQL databases run as a platform offering, meaning that you don't need to take care of operating system patching, you don't need to address performance issues, because this is done by the platform in automated fashion. So this way you consume just only the database. And the good thing that this solution is 99% compatible with running your own SQL server, so you might use that for migrating your current and existing workloads to the platform as a service offering. Moving on, we do allow you to host websites as a service that are built on .NET, for example, PHP, Node.js, or other popular programming languages. And this way you can automatically scale and script For example, the instance count dependent on the traffic that you receive to your website, etc. So using full automation, stuff like that. If big data is your game, we do have HD Insight services running on Apache and allowing you to do that big data analytics straight from the platform. Moving on, other example is actually if you need just to run algorithm or test something related to data analytics, you can use stuff like Azure Machine Learning, which allows you to use simple workflows for creating and training your algorithms to do the predictive stuff. And this can be exposed as a web service in 3 clicks actually, or less, which is pretty easy to do and pretty beneficial to business from business perspective. On the other hand, if you want just to consume those algorithms that are already prepared and trained, you can use Cortana Analytics Cognitive Services, which is a suite of services, for example, to do language recognition or image content recognition, etc., stuff like that. So implement those directly into your solutions. Now, in order to automate the development environment creation or creation or just getting rid of it, you can actually use the Dev and Test Labs, which allow you to automate and script all that environment creation, etc. And for example, this offering and Dev and Test Labs service is free of charge as long as you pay for the resources that are underlying in that solution. Hopefully you are not getting tired of me yet, because I do have one another slide that I would like to walk you through. Just kidding. I won't walk you through, but all those offerings, but there are at least 60 or more services that are running in Azure, and the services that you can actually use for your day-to-day development or operational businesses. And this is the Azure periodic table. It's not Microsoft stuff, but you can find it online and use it interactively to learn about those services. And keep in mind that there are a lot of offerings that are there and are available for you. Now, on the other hand, we do have one interesting thing to share as well. The stuff I talked about, this was related to public cloud and Microsoft Azure cloud platform, but you can run most of that stuff on your premises, or you will be able to run it in the hopefully this year's time frame. And the solution here is actually Azure Stack, and I just wanted to say that Azure Stack is actually the Azure bits running in your data center, in a sense. And this way you can actually redeploy the same software, the same code that you run publicly on your premise. And this can help you in 2 ways. One way, for example, isolating your data and running this where you have a limited connection to internet or to other networks, or in compliance scenarios. On the other hand, this might be useful if you need to burst additional capacity for a limited amount of time. For example, if you're talking about e-commerce solutions or stuff like that, there might be marketing campaigns related to Black Fridays, Christmases, or etc. And this way you can just use the public compute power available for those short periods, paying just for what you use and for the time that you use it. With that, let me continue and move into the Azure Solutions part. And what is Azure Solutions? What's with the Azure Solutions here? So basically the way we see it, Azure Solutions are just pre-built scenarios for all those different components and description of those components, how they interact, and how you can start pretty quickly developing and building your solution. And I do have a couple of examples here. This is not exhaustive list, but just a couple of points to talk about. For example, mobile Azure solution. So mobile Azure solution would allow you to build an application for both or for all current mobile platforms like Android, iOS, do the user authentication with the backend code that is provided and integrated into the platform, and at the same time host everything within the resources that Azure provides. If you would like to learn more about, for example, Internet of Things stuff, the sensor data, how to process it, what is the cold and hot analytics paths, etc., you could try to learn about Azure solution that is called remote monitoring with IoT. And this way, you could jumpstart building your solution in minutes rather than in weeks or months, dependent on your current knowledge. And as you can see, the list is pretty deep here, and it even covers scenarios like shared ledger or blockchain solutions, as we call them. This is interesting for financial institutions and, well, other advanced scenarios, if I may call them this way. Now, each of those solutions actually provide you some resources that you can, well, explore and dig deeper into. And the first resource being is actually the webinar or case study that is covered with a real company. Most of the times it's more than one company, and at least one of them is company from Fortune 500 list. So you can learn the actual implementation and how this solution was used in the real world, and why this is beneficial for you and your business. Another thing is actually reference architectures and blueprint of all the interconnecting parts and resources from Azure that you need to use in order to have a best running scenario. And this is, for me personally, most beneficial because I can reference to those while talking to customers, while building their architectures and solutions. Now, directly from that page, from that solution, you can actually learn about all the components that are being used in that particular solution. So you don't need to Google or Bing it. Just you can directly learn about it from the page that you're currently in. And you can leverage independent software vendor code as well, just by using and getting directions to marketplace approved applications. For example, if we talk about stuff like e-commerce, you might not want to build the entire solution from the ground, and you might leverage some open source or other third-party solutions that are available to deploy directly to public cloud. Okay, let me move on and provide you one example of a commerce solution that you can find at the same page and the page that I will provide you later. And with that, let's start with the business perspective. So typically what I hear from businesses, if they want to deploy or relocate their current business solution, they provide these motives and goals, what they want to achieve using the cloud or building that solution for the business. So first of all, they want to focus more on the customers and give to customers more to have a higher profits and to drive sales. The second thing is they want to sell more while at the same time doing it more securely. So complying to all the different laws and regulations, as well as having a secure platform that saves you from all the hackers and the threats that are lurking in the internet. On the other hand, the capacity that I already mentioned. So in case of those huge marketing campaigns like Black Fridays, etc., so you need to extend your compute capacity, and you want to pay just for what you use. And in some scenarios, those customers are dreaming big, and for example, they want to automate even some supply chain management, and for example, automatically track some goods that are in their in their stores, or to track stocks and automatically reorder the stocks that are running low and automate those things. And the final part is that actually they want to focus on increasing their sales, not buying new servers or supporting the IT infrastructure that is underlying requirements for such solution. And with Azure, you get some additional benefits out of the box. For example, you can automatically analyze all the traffic that is coming to that e-commerce site that you will create, and you can target content to a specific customer by using that machine learning and intelligence, and that can be deployed just as a simple resource. Another thing is that in case you are starting a project from scratch, you might want to reuse some intellectual property that is available and to deploy automatically solutions that are already in the market, like some e-commerce platforms. Those are available and created as an open source offering, so you can directly deploy them, and in that case just go deploy the resource and go directly to the website's config page rather than specifying the CPU and the RAM counts or automatic scaling stuff that is already pre-configured for you. Scale, most of those solutions do have automatic capability to scale dependent on the demand, as well as automation. So if you need to do any task twice, you can automate everything in the platform, script it, and then just automatically give to that feedback to that demand, or deploy additional resources, or maintain something if you need to do that. And the solutions that are pre-built as a cloud service. So the easiest way to do that is actually to go to azure.com/solutions page, and the first thing you find here is the recommended marketplace solutions that you can directly deploy. And these examples include, for example, OpenCart, VirtuCommerce, or BanteCart. If you want more customizable solution, or neither of those work, so you can start deploying and building your own application. And this way, you can start from the beginning and think about resources from infrastructure perspective. So I already talked about virtual machines and containers as basic building blocks. I talked about storage and networking that you might need for running such solution in the marketplace. Now, if you can, or your preferred choice should be running this as a platform service, and this way you do have different offerings that you can use to run that code. So the first being app service. This is end-to-end app service that allows you to run front ends, mobile applications, API exchange between partners, and logic apps that require no code and just, for example, use workflows that collect data from different sources and exchange it, everything, and use that for, well, to make it easier to maintain and to automate as much as possible, without caring about patching of operating system and those old school maintenance tasks. Now, if your solution requires, or you can build a microservices application based on microservices architecture, you could run stuff like Service Fabric, and this way you would build a cloud-native application that automatically scales in the microservice environment. If serverless is your choice, functions could help you here, and not only from building the whole solution into functions, but as well as interconnecting between different components, or using that trigger event service to automate things and data exchange. And I do realize that sometimes e-commerce is not built from scratch. I mean, you do have solutions that are running in place, so you can leverage the cloud services if you need to move monolithic 3-tier applications with front ends, application logic, and database backends for those older applications, or that code that is already running on your premises. Now, if other platform as a service provider is your choice, you can use different frameworks from, for example, Cloud Foundry, OpenShift to run your solutions within Azure as well, with the support from Microsoft and the platform that is capable of running all that stuff. So to recap, different options of how to approach that e-commerce task that may come from business, and different options for you to leverage while building that solution. And I mentioned referential architectures as well. So when you decide, or you at least thought about the way you want to go and proceed with that solution, you actually dig into reference architecture and start analyzing how Microsoft recommends to use which resources and how to interconnect those different resources within themselves. So the simplest scenario is actually if we target customers that are accessing our e-commerce website from phone or tablet or browser. So we might want to use a content delivery network for caching the content and putting that content closer to our customers. On the other hand, we might want to authenticate those customers using their current open IDs that are provided, for example, from Facebook or Google. And we can, for that, we can leverage Azure Active Directory resource. Now, I mentioned that the easiest way to go with e-commerce is actually to use web apps for building that commerce site. And in the backend, we could use a search platform, for example, to automate searching and integrating the recommendations and all those additional intelligence layers as well. We would use blob storage for storing product images as well as the signed content, Redis cache for caching internal components, and SQL database for orders and product catalog. Now, another tightly coupled thing with e-commerce is actually processing the transactions and payments. And for that, we could use service bus queues for processing credit card data. And for that, we can integrate all those things with third-party payment gateways. And we do have at least 60 partners that are providing that payment and gateway services to the platform. I did mention the performance and automatic scaling, as well as the code telemetry and learning about your application, how it performs. And for that, we could use application insights service that can automatically track all the requests that are happening within the code and where are the bottlenecks to easier identify those and to optimize your solution. Another scenario, imagine you need fault tolerance and split it into regions. So just by the center, one primary data center, secondary data center, you exchange the data and redirect customers by using Traffic Manager. Then you might extend that solution to provide recommendations and APIs, as well as use, for example, Power BI to do additional analytics and provide information to your employees and then users. Taking a step further, if you want to integrate, for example, some IoT stuff, Internet of Things like RFID, sensors, etc., to track your store's supplies in real time, you could use that. My clicker is not working, but you could use that in your retail store, ingest all the data to IoT Hub, then analyze it in the best way possible through hot or cold analysis through Stream Analytics. Look at the insights and automatically develop some additional workflows that can run, for example, in microservices architecture and exchange the data in secure manner through API management. And then the rest is the same solution that I already covered in previous steps. So hopefully that provides you some insights on the solution. This was one example for e-commerce, and there are at least a dozen more. So I would like to encourage you to take further steps if you're not still familiar with the platform, and start by signing up for a free trial on azure.com/free. This will give you around 150 euros that you can use completely free of charge for 30 days. Now, the solutions that I referenced are located in azure.com/solutions link, so you can learn about those there. And if you would like to get some insights for your personal training or learning more about the platform, you can leverage the community resources that are available through /community/training. With that, I'm inviting you for the Q&A session if you have any questions related to my presentation.
Yes, thank you. For sure, now we will find some solutions for our problems, custom problems. So let's go with the questions. Do we have any? Okay, we'll start then. So how many servers actually, you showed this table, but actually how many are there at this moment? What is that number?
The last time I checked, it was over 60 services, but since this is like 3 or 6 months old information, I doubt that it's correct. There are definitely more now.
So maybe somebody have
a
question.
Yeah, here.
The lights are
here. So this is a very specifically technical question regarding the Azure Container Service. I think it's a great piece of technology, and right now you can choose either Kubernetes DCOS or Swarm as your backend for your container service. But when you deploy a Swarm cluster, it is using the old version of Swarm instead of the new one. Like, even though it's the latest Docker version, the Swarm itself is the old schooly one with the console container running and the custom configuration, etc. My question is there anything on the roadmap to update that to the latest Swarm version that supports services, pods, load balancing, and all that?
Yeah, I could check for the specific platform stuff, and just let's exchange contacts afterwards. I will provide you that answer in the email. But in general, as you know, that containers are, well, vast ecosystem that you have to maintain compatibility within. So solutions are popping up here and there, and the extensibility is well created on ad hoc basis, not necessarily following all the best practices and usual integration. So in order to support our customers and maintain the platform stability, we from time to time lag on some solutions, and as well as some of the current updates come in the form of so-called preview, and this way we address the bleeding edge technology with lesser SLAs in that sense. So let's exchange contacts. I will provide you the information if possible.
Cool, thanks.